Good evening, my name is Helen Anthony, I'm Chair of the Committee on Finance, and I'm calling to order our regular meeting on Tuesday, November 26, 2024, at 5:33 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor, who's absent. Councilor Underwood,
Present.
Councilwoman Graves,
Present.
Councilor Sanchez,
Present.
four present, one absent. You have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome Solicitor Effie Bob from the City Solicitor's Office. Thank you very much for joining us. And of course, Laura Gutierrez and Donna Pollution, our wonderful clerks. Thank you so much for staffing us tonight. We've had several requests from councilors to continue, first of all, from Councilor Gonzalez, to continue item agenda night number 1. If you could please read that.
Item 1, resolution to support the decibel reader training for Providence Police.
Okay. Unfortunately, he is not able to attend this evening and asked that we continue this. So I'd love a motion.
Motion to continue.
Second.
A motion to continue by Councilor Anderbaugh, seconded by Councilor Graves. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Madam Clerk, would you please read item number 2?
Item 2, resolution granting a tax abatement for Joseph Duffy, apartment 16 Somerset Street.
And again, we had a request. This was a resolution put forth by Councilor Harris, Mary Kay Harris, and she also is unable to attend. I am going to continue this until our next meeting, which is on December 3rd, next week.
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion?
I'm sorry. Make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion to continue by Councilor Graves, seconded by Councilor Anderbaugh. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, with that, we are going to move to, I'm going to ask for a motion to waive the readings of items number 3 through 5.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Anderbaugh, seconded by Councilor Sanchez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And I will call our crew, whoever's here to testify. I could say 3 of you here, but we'll swear you in.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear on the country of the treasury that the testimony about the did is true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your names and your titles for the record.
I'm from the Powell Town Director of Intergovernmental Affairs. Christian Garcia, Director of Recovery.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to have a motion to discuss items 3 through 5 together, and then we'll vote separately. Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion made by Councilor Anderbaugh, seconded by Councilor Sanchez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to turn the floor over. Oh, wait, first we do a substitute. Which is the 3, so I'm assuming these are all in order. Madam Clerk, the first one for item number 3, the second one for item number 4, and the third one for
That's
item
correct,
number
Madam
5.
Chair.
So may I mark them, exhibit 1, 2, and 3?
Substitutions.
Substitution, all right, I'm gonna ask for a motion to substitute, the items before us for what we have originally in our packet. Motion. Okay.
Second.
Motion to substitute made by Councilor Graves, seconded by Councilor Anderbaugh. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great. I think we have the corrected ones in front of us, so I'm gonna let you go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would it be possible, we have a PowerPoint presentation here that we printed out. Would it be possible to pass this out and then
Please.
mark it as an exhibit if possible?
So I'm gonna have a motion to mark the handout as exhibit 1.
So moved.
Second. The motion made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Anderbaugh. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
All right,
Madam Chair, Councilors, thank you for your time. Just to begin, I'm hoping to lay out the goals of the presentation and the information I'm hoping to convey. I think firstly, I'd like to give the committee a sense of our process and the steps we've taken over the past few weeks and months to arrive at this structure. And secondly, the hope is to provide somewhat of an overview of where our board stands to date, the progress made, and updates from some key programs. So lastly, my goal is to give this committee a sense of our proposal for reinvesting the remaining funds, where those funds are coming from and why, and my colleague will also give us speak on what the reinvestment means for the city. So just starting on slide 2 here. As I mentioned, I wanted to give a quick sense of just the process and the work the recovery office has been doing over the past few weeks and months. So leading up to this point, we've engaged in a pretty thorough exercise across City Hall. We've reviewed all ordinance lines related to our ARPA award. The goal was to determine the status of the funds and identify potential areas of reinvestment. And it's something we did not in isolation. It was a collaborative process. It's one that's been done in collaboration with a wide range of city departments, including with staff in the council office. We've been holding monthly and in many cases bi-weekly meetings with departmental leads and project leads overseeing various projects funded by our ARPA award. And the goal of those meetings has been several. One is to continue to inform the departments of our upcoming treasury deadlines and discuss compliance related issues. The other is to talk through project updates and plans for contracting and spending funds. And so we've been meeting with and in contact with at least 9 different departments throughout this process to make sure the city is ultimately making this. And coming out of that exercise, we've identified 11 ordinance lines with available funds for the investment, either full or partial. And as part of that same process, we're happy to report that we've identified about 60 ordinance lines that are either fully spent or on track to be spent. And so on the next slide here, on slide 3, just starting at the kind of 30,000 foot level, I would like to give kind of a bigger picture overview of the ARPA award and talk to the ordinance lines that are either fully spent down or on track to be fully spent down. And so these are the lines where funds are fully expended, or we have a very clear path to spending down those funds, or we have contracts in place, or we have box awards issued and contracts being drafted by a law department. And what this slide here tells me is that the city's been able to plan, design, and partner with organizations to execute on a very substantial number of projects, ensure that the funds associated with those projects have an impact in the city's residents, and in many cases, the city's residents of highest need. The city has invested its award in high impact areas represented below, including but not limited to economic development, building resilient neighborhoods, city services and infrastructure, youth and education, and housing. And those are all outlined here below.
May I just stop you for a quick second, just so we're clear?
Of course.
So the green is the ones that are fully spent.
That is
correct?
correct.
Okay, and the ones that aren't highlighted in green, these are.
While not fully spent down, we have plans in place. They've either been contracted or we're have a plan to get everything contracted by the end of the year.
Okay.
Excellent. I just wanted to stop and make sure that we all we're following along.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on the next slide, on slide 4, in addition to the work being done to bring the general ARPA public projects to fruition, we also want to provide this committee with a sense of the already programmed work being done as part of the COVID-19 equities program. And so since the passing of that ordinance, the city has allocated, planned, developed, and programmed and contracted a substantial portion of the funds from the COVID-19 equities program in line with the goals of the Providence Municipal Reparations Commission. And so the city has been able to develop programming and contract outside partners to carry out the work as prescribed in 17 of those lines. As of today, the city has contracted $6,123,540.08 worth of projects and has spent over $5 million. There's approximately $900,000 worth and more in development and will be contracted shortly, putting us at just over $7 million in work that will be contracted and ongoing. And on the next slide, on slide 5,
I'm sorry, I'm just going to catch up with you.
please.
So slide 4.
Yep.
Is all the contracted work and through the vendor
That is correct.
and all encumbered and spent.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
All right, now we're on 5. Thank you. Sorry.
No, totally fine. And just to note, there is an additional about 900,000 that is in the final stages of either getting contracts drafted by the legal department, we have box awards issued, and so this total amount, all said and done by December 31st, should be just north of $7 million.
Okay, thank you. All right. I think it's just taken me 1 minute to
Yeah, totally.
absorb your report and then report back to you. Okay.
Totally. Happy to.
Yes, I'm sorry. Please.
Oh, thank you.
Counselor.
How much had originally been part of the reparations program? If we're spending a little north of 7, what was
The original amount is 10 million. And on the next slide, on slide 5, now that we've reviewed kind of the ongoing and completed work, and I'm certainly happy to give other updates on that work, I wanted to also just provide a more thorough breakdown of the ordinance lines we have identified with potential for reinvestment. And so again, it's important to underline that these were identified by departmental leads in charge of developing the program. And this breakdown gives you a sense of where the funds came from with the specifics on the ordinance line, the original allocation, and the amount for reinvestment. Before going into the specific lines, I just want to elaborate on why these specific lines were identified. And so they were identified either because the programming had been fully completed, scope was done, and we simply had funds remaining, or a project was not able to get it down to the next stage. But I would say it's worth noting that for most of these lines listed here, they generally fall into that first category, meaning the majority of the work had been completed, the scope was done, and we had funds remaining from the organization.
I'm gonna stop you
Yeah.
right here because I want to see if any of the committee members have questions on these, the reinvestment, which reinvestment meaning to revenue recovery, which I'm also saying that revenue recovery will help us meet our obligation to ESD.
Correct.
Okay.
And I do have and I'm certainly happy to take questions. I was gonna go through these each one by one. kind of get-
Oh, you are? Okay, please do. Yeah, we really like that. Thank you.
And so, just to start at the top of the anti-violence investments, there we had remaining balance of approximately 59,000 after successful programming focused on youth mentorships. There, the city partnered with Mentor Rhode Island and the RM Mentoring Partnership to provide assistance in issuing grants to mentoring programs across Providence. Ultimately, this provided services to approximately 640 mentees. And when it comes to the direct relief to Providence residents, there we had a remaining balance of just over 3,700 after the program was successfully completed. That program provided flexible cash relief payments of $500 a month for a year to approximately 110 low-income Providence households who have suffered economic hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the program is run in collaboration with Amos House, Mayors for Guaranteed Income, and Dorcas International. And the participants there were picked through a lottery beginning in August of 2021, and the program ran for about a year and a half.
Just to,
Yes, do you mind if we interrupt just since we're on these lines? I'm sorry, Counselor Sanchez.
I just want to say, I really appreciate you. It was my first interaction with you, outside of email, and I'm extremely impressed and thankful. This is a note to the mayor's office. Are we gonna get like a report or like data on that program? On the direct payment? I think that would be kind of helpful at some point.
I do believe that, there's a report forthcoming. I can check on the status of it being done by UPenn. I think it's being done in collaboration with one of the departments at UPenn. And so I think it's going to inquire the status of the report.
Thank you.
In terms of the emergency housing solutions, there we have a remaining balance of approximately 80,000 left over with several successful programs totaling nearly 3.7 million. And the goal there was to work with partners to expand non-congregate shelter models, diversion and housing navigation programs to add capacity to the homelessness service system serving those in the city of Providence. The city partnered with approximately 10 organizations such as Amos House, Crossroads Rhode Island, House of Hope, Community Care Alliance, and Rhode Island Coalition to End Homelessness to prop up a range of programs including women's shelter, temporary shelter expansion for the medically vulnerable, emergency shelter program for victims of abuse and members of the LGBTQ plus community, and general temporary emergency shelter. In terms of the expand rapid rehousing, there we had a remaining balance of approximately $40,000 left over after several programs needed 1.2 million. The goal of that work was to sustain increased levels of rapid housing investment with 18 to 24 months of rental assistance paired with case management for 2 to 3 years to expedite client transition from shelter into home. And so we worked with organizations such as RIPTA to provide day passes for constituents experiencing unsheltered homelessness, with Crossroads Rhode Island to provide mobile outreach services, diversion assistance, and shelter assistance, with Amos House to provide direct housing assistance, and housing care coordination to provide crisis resolution, and other organizations to provide overflow shelters. In terms of the hardest hit community organizations line, there we had a balance of approximately $5,000 left over after several successful programs totaling nearly $300,000. The goal there was to provide direct relief funding for nonprofit organizations to extend social services such as minority business assistance, behavioral health services, healthcare, job training, food pantries, and childcare to residents within the neighborhoods most disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And some of the awardees there, just to give you a sense, were the West End Community Center, Youth Moving Forward, Center for Southeast Asians, Nepali Ministries, Federal Hill House, and Community Action Partnership in Providence County. The next line for homelessness intervention, there we have a remaining balance of just about $700 left over after programming totaling nearly $500,000. We worked with 2 organizations there, Gather Together as one and United as one, and Crossroads to provide housing navigation services, short-term assistance for the housing, mobile outreach services. In terms of the independent auditor, per my conversations with our finance department and their communication with the said auditor, the auditor reviewed their work is complete, given the city's designation of the entirety of the ARPA funds as revenue recovery, which comes with our stringent compliance requirements. To be clear, that we still work with our iParametrics, our compliance consultant, who not only provides guidance on compliance matters, but also carries out independent audits of our services. And second to last, summer jobs and year-round youth jobs. There we had a remaining balance of about $5,000 after successful programming focused on youth jobs. This led to the creation of jobs for about 450 Providence youth across 13 organizations that we work with. And lastly, in terms of Francis Street Armory, here's one of the few programs that we weren't able to execute just past the planning stage, but my understanding there is that we weren't able to get the requisite state support needed to make this a viable project.
Committee members, I'd like to welcome Pro Tem Cardo joining us, and I have about to Mayor Easter Gardner here, our policy director, and Southwest Coast, and their communications director. So I didn't know, I want to just stop and ask if anyone has any follow-up questions on any of these items that are proposed to be reinvested. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much for 5. We're on to 6.
Moving on to slide 6. Okay, and so as the committee is aware, the budget gap the city is faced with has forced the city to also look at reinvesting some of the remaining funds from the COVID-19 activities ordinance line, and the proposal to invest around $2.9 million within the COVID-19 activities ordinance to revenue recovery to offset the increased allocation to PPSC and K-12 education, a key priority from the commission before. I'll note this was not the original plan. The city's plan was to invest the remaining $2.9 million in creating affordable housing opportunities and in enhancing capacity building for community-based organizations across the city. And it's only now because of the recent decision, the remaining funds we proposed go to revenue recovery to cover the budget gap. This will allow the city to dedicate more money to schools and to PPSD. And so, as I mentioned before, while the plan is to invest a full $10 million, we can confirm that we will have invested just over $7 million as part of the COVID-19 equities program. Of the 23 lines that are in the COVID equities ordinance, the city's been able to plan and develop programming for 17. 6 have funds that will be that are proposed to be reinvested, and these funds are coming from projects that either have remaining funds left over or they're not able to be contracted despite best efforts. And so, similar to the last slide, I'll go through each of these one by one, just to describe the efforts that were taken. And so, with respect to the home ownership and financial literacy program, the original intent of the work with empowering individuals and families, particularly first-generation home buyers, to afford to disadvantaged communities, An RFP for the work was issued on July 3rd, 2024. The city only received one bid, even after the bid period was extended. The RFP was submitted to a list of 7 local nonprofits. And so efforts were made to make sure we had a robust response, and there were awards available for 100,000 to 1 million. The bid was rejected because the applicants would be working with the Century 21 agents, and there was a potential conflict of interest. Also, in addition, the bidder was a recent college graduate and did not have the requisite experience to run a program of this size of $1 million. And so from there, we weren't able to get further interest in the program. With respect to the Earn and Learn Workforce Training Program, here, this is a matter of the remaining balance. We have about just a bit over $2,700 remaining. Otherwise, these funds were programmed and executed pretty much to their full extent. The Providence Earn and Learn Workforce Training Program is dedicated to revolutionizing work-based career pathway development and employment placement for eligible city residents with a focus on the city's youth. And so the Earn and Learn Workforce model allows Providence residents to receive a livable wage stipend while gaining training, certification, and education necessary for full-time job placement. And so there, the city partnered with community-based organizations to provide employment opportunities leading to about 150 jobs for Providence. So there was just a remaining balance. Similarly, as part of that same ordinance line, we're working with the Workforce Solutions of Cranston and Providence to provide workforce training with local organizations selected from the existing state of Rhode Island eligible training provider list to provide training across high need industry areas such as healthcare, trucking, and others. And then on the small business acceleration line, there we have partially programmed the work, programs and work funded across 4 areas. One, the city is working with a contractor in developing a disparity study for minority women and business enterprises to inform and support the goal of increasing WNE participation in city contracts and other diversity programs. So far, the consultant has had conversations with the purchasing department to discuss a plan for the study, created a study website, and that work is well underway.
May I just ask, when can we expect to result in that? Because we've been waiting for this.
Based on my last read of the project plan and timeline, I believe that timeline extends into about June of 2025. And so there will be a final report coming out of that in June 2025 from Keen Independent Research.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Second,
can I
Yes,
ask a question?
yes, please.
Um,
Time.
Just a quick question, in terms of detailed, in terms of the money expended already on Earn and Learn workforce training, you have those already
yes,
allocated and so forth, and a report on that too?
we can definitely provide a report. We certainly have a breakdown of the organizations that we have contracts with, and so all that work is ongoing.
Yep.
But we have contracts with those folks that are concerned.
The same thing within the business, small business,
Yeah.
Yep. All right, thank you,
Of course.
thank you.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. Please proceed. Sorry to interrupt.
No, happy to take questions. And then secondly, on the small business acceleration line, in addition to the work with for the disparity study, we're working with a contractor, Tough Leaf, that offers a set of services through their NWPE platform in order to promote diversity, economic development, and the recruitment of minority-owned businesses to engage in the city's procurement process. Thirdly, we'll be funding the creation of a merchants association in Smith Hill. And then lastly, the city will be using funds for career-specific ESL classes to create a pipeline of talent into industries such as healthcare, for CNA courses, for nurse certifications, and for CDL truck driving credentials.
Can I just ask overall, I think that this particular area has received, you know, a lot of us are very, very interested in ensuring that this money is, has resulted in good, is all I'm gonna say. So we very much would like, I think, a report, certainly on the, very specifically on the Earn and Learn workforce training, also the small business acceleration. When would I understand the disparity study is going to be done in June of 2025. Is that a good time to set for us to get a report back?
Absolutely.
On these specific items.
Absolutely, because I think that also gives us time to make sure we have everything obligated and contracted by the end of the year, and then the programs starting and work to get to work in earnest, we'll have results by June 2025.
Thank you.
In terms of the next line, invest in media firms, the original intention is to conduct a feasibility study to aid the city of Providence in developing a plan and pathway to advance African heritage and indigenous owned media firms as an important means to provide representation to the diverse populations of Providence. An RFP did go out in November of 2022. There was one bidder rejected later on in the winter, early spring of 2023. We weren't able to find sufficient bidder within the posting period. We then redoubled our efforts in 2024 and put the work out to bid again. We did receive one bid in the summer of 2024, but that bid was also deficient. And then with respect to the expand operational capacity, there were 2 projects awarded to 2 different organizations, Inspiring Minds and the Rhode Island Black Business Association, for $150,000 and then for just over $20,000 each for expanding operational capacity grants. They received funds to construct a minority small business co-work center and provide community training centers in Washington Park sector of the city. And from there, the city also awarded Inspiring Minds to fund the design of a community space at 65 Pavilion Avenue. And then lastly, in terms of funding to establish a history school, there was difficulty in finding a suitable community partner to establish the history school with the level.
Question on-
Yes, please. Counselor Anderson.
Thank you. One, this is amazing. You're giving such good detail. For the history school, can you tell
Yes.
a little bit more about like what that was supposed to be? Because I know that there's the new African American History Museum that just launched, but I don't know if that's different than a history school.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to look more into it. From my understanding of it, the idea was to provide a center to be able to teach a curriculum, a history curriculum that is a bit different than I guess you would find in a typical public school. And so the idea was to have that somewhere. I know in our discussions with organizations in a united way, there was some it was hard to find traction to get it out.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to slide 7. Finally, this leads us up to the reinvestment piece, and so the sum total of those 2 slides I discussed, providing a breakdown leads to this. The total amount available at this time is $4,405,830.73. And the proposal is to invest those funds in our revenue recovery line. And again, the idea here is based on that will allow us to offset budget gaps, which will allow for increased allocation to PPSD and to the schools and all like that. I knew that.
Any questions from committee members?
I have like one.
Yes, Dr. Graves.
And we're going back to the other page. I'm sorry. Well, the expanded operational capacity,
Yes,
how much was it? Because it looks like only 2 groups were awarded, and most of the money is coming back. So had they done anything?
so the 2 groups that were awarded, they were awarded for a total of $170,000. The difficulty in programming the remainder of the funds was in, I believe this was categorized under the creation and development of media category in the COVID-19 equities ordinance, the original ordinance, and I think there was some difficulty in finding something that fit those parameters, and so I'm not sure of the original intent of this, but that led to some difficulty in getting the rest of the money program.
Okay, other questions? Yes, Counselor.
Just a-
Further.
Thank you. Just a clarification,
Sure.
on the, anti-violence investments. There were originally 2 million invested, right? And so the remaining balance is like $60,000. Is there any specific why that money, was not drawn down, or is just the opportunities for the youth were not available, or any specific reason?
So with something like this, the organizations we work with were given money to then disperse out to other community organizations. So in many cases, sometimes you end up in a situation where these organizations, they get the money back because they're not able to execute on the work. And so we were just left with a balance that the organization was working for. And so they would come back to us and say, we have these funds left over and they're just didn't have it.
Do you have specifics in terms of who these organizations were that were not able to
Yes.
fulfill that
Absolutely.
requirement?
So for the anti-violence investment lines, we worked with Mentor, Bill Allen, and I mentioned partnership. With this organization,
Okay, thank you.
of course. And if I may, just on the final slide, which is slide 8, just to quickly cover that, so you'll see that the amendments to the ordinances in front of you do have some amendments to the language to include what I guess we can call a catch-all or recapture language. This is essentially to ensure that we are able to use all of our RK awards to make sure that any projects that do have funds left over, like we had in that example, we can then reallocate to make sure that we don't lose any of our award. And so the idea is to do that in the short term and the long term. So by December 15, 2024, making sure any ARPA funds that are not under contract, we reallocate to revenue recovery. Now, my expectation in working with all the department needs is that there won't be any work that necessarily won't be contracting stage. What we can't expect to happen between now and December 31st, though, is there'll be programs that come to us and email us saying, hey, we have 5,000 left over. Here you go, we have another $1,000, and that kind of adds up. And so between that, we expect to have somewhere probably around $100,000 from that, which is coming in from those four things. And so that's really the intention of that first clawback. The second one, and the second catch-all, is to make sure that if there are other projects that do come in under budget or forfeit funds as well between now and the end of the ARPA timeline, which is December 31st, 2026, we're able to reobligate that. And so we put a timeline of March 31st because that would give us time to kind of regroup, see how much has come in, and then decide where we reobligate that. Right now, we designated that.
I guess my follow-up, thank you so much. My follow-up will be, will we receive a report on exactly what funds have not been, by December 15th, and again, another report on March 31st, 2026, so that we'll have an understanding of what was not spent and what was reobligated to revenue recovery.
Yes, happy to provide that. And I would say the report for at least the first timeline, it would most likely be just a summary of programs that have forfeited funds.
Okay. Questions? Further questions? Christian, I would just like to thank you very much for your diligence and your thoroughness. I think we're probably a little sad that the money said we're, the $10 million not spent. I appreciate the transparency from you. It's difficult that the money also that is going to be reallocating from housing to revenue recovery. That's also very upsetting for us because these were all of these were priorities of ours. So, but I do appreciate your work and we're thoroughly working on this, and I look forward to receiving more reports from you. Thank you. Discussion. I should ask for the motion first. Is there a motion and then we can discuss?
Are you going to take one at a time, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay.
What was the motion? Well, the motion I think is going to be either to recommend approval.
Motion to recommend approval. Item.
Well, item number 3. That second. All right, the motion was made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Anderbaugh. And at this point, I'm just going to open it up. Any discussion at all? We can make this, specific to number 3, or I'm going to say overall comments.
No, I mean, I would just really appreciate the recovery office for providing these numbers, and yeah, I mean, definitely not the plan that we were planning for, but I think it's an important pivot. Make sure that, the children of the city of Providence get the money that it's legally obligated to.
I agree. I think you guys are coming in and giving us a blow by blow. It's a sad affair that we're at in this position. But that's through no fault of our own. And we have to accept what it is and keep on walking. One good thing about Providence, you know, they may try to knock us down, but we're gonna stand up and we're gonna walk tall. And we'll do whatever we have to do to survive. And we will, we're resilient and we will survive, so. You know, the judge who said he had his hands tied, I still think he should have did something different, so shame on him. I know this is on record, the governor who came out and said how much he supported what happened, shame on him. And for us to have left that rule on the record for so long, shame on all of us, you know, but it is what it is. And we will survive.
Great, any other comments, any other discussion? The motion is
Madam Chair,
made.
so it should be approved as amended. Because those are.
I'm
changes that are
sorry.
made. That's
So
okay.
do we have to retract the motion? Yes.
I would withdraw and then
Would you
Approve as
withdraw your
amended.
Second.
I withdraw my motion.
Oh, thank you. Okay, now may I have a new motion?
Motion to pass item number 3 as amended.
Second. Okay. Thank you for the correction, Madam Clerk.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, and we have a motion with regard to number 4. Motion to approve the report amended.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Andrew, seconded by Councilor Graves, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? That is number 5.
Motion motion to, accept, make, approve
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
Yes, motion made by Councilor Graves, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you, we
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, there's no further business motion to adjourn? Oh, you can just adjourn us, Helen.
No.
She's not ready.
I'll let her do
Fine, we're gonna do, motion was made, it wasn't second. You have a second?
Second.
No,
Okay, motion made by Councilor Andrew, seconded by Councilor Graves, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, no, thank you so much.